Hello everyone, and welcome to my next video on domestic violence. Tonight I want to talk about how to safely leave an abusive relationship, using examples from my own experience. Depending on how unstable the primary aggressor may be, leaving can be by far the most dangerous time for the victim. You might recall from my last video that abusive situations are not static. They escalate over time, and if uninterrupted, they will always result in death. Sometimes attempting to leave the relationship becomes the catalyst that provokes the violence in someone who appears harmless. Something that most bystanders don't understand is that attempts to leave the relationship are usually blocked or punished by the aggressor in some way. It can be mental, where they try to persuade you to stay by making false promises and the like. It could be financial, where they deny you the monetary resources to allow you to separate, or even physical, where the abuser literally beats you into submission. If your abuser has angry attachment issues, then their insecurities lead them to see your exit from the relationship as a betrayal. The aggressor may refuse to acknowledge the relationship is over and may consider anything the victim does to be behind their back, which may cause retaliation. In which case, making any official action to end the relationship, such as divorce papers or restraining orders, can enrage the aggressor, which puts the victim in extreme danger. So it's really important to have an exit strategy planned out and ready to go at a moment's notice for yourself, your children, and for your pets as well. So the first thing is you have to let go of the person you thought your partner was. It's not the loss of your partner that is so devastating. It's the loss of this idyllic image that you hold of them in your head. It is so painful to realize that the persona you fell in love with died a long time ago. You have to realize that as long as you are clinging to this false image, you're not having an authentic relationship, but are instead engaging in a dangerous fantasy that you have created inside your head. So, tell someone, gather your friends, your family, whomever you have left. If you are completely isolated, there are domestic violence shelters available to you. Have these people around you when you are ready to leave. Have a code red word that you can text to let other people know if you're in trouble, or have a visual cue, such as leaving the porch light on, to signal to others that you're in distress. In the last few days of my own relationship, I had to text my brother to call me at a planned time just so that I could tell my abuser that my boss was calling me into work early so I could get out of the house. Once you have accepted the fact that you are being abused and that you are ready to leave the relationship, be very careful in how you act around your partner in the final days before your departure. If you start acting too differently, if you become too defensive, if you show the abuser that his normal control tactics are no longer working on you, he will notice, and it will only challenge him to up the ante. This is extremely dangerous because the victim has to act as if nothing has changed, when in fact everything has changed, including how you see your partner. After you come to terms with the fact that your partner is not who you thought they were, after you've come to realize that the person you go home to is toxic to your health and your happiness, after you've finally made that decision to get the hell out, it is going to be extremely difficult to go home and cook their dinner and fold their laundry and sleep in their bed. I came home angry. My adrenaline was running high for days, and I was constantly in fight or flight mode. My skin crawled every time he touched me, and I knew when he looked at me that he could see the dead look in my eyes. And that's when I knew I was in trouble. I knew that he knew that his power and control over me had broken. And I had to make the decision to move to emergency plan B, immediate extraction. I was supposed to work a total of 12 hours between both of my jobs that Saturday, but I made calls to both of my supervisors and was able to secure about 4 to 5 free hours to try to orchestrate the mass chaos that became my move out of that house. The point of the story is basically avoid wearing your heart on your sleeve if you can, and start documenting the abuse. Keep records of all texts, emails, stalking, or harassment. Take pictures of any bruises or damage they have done to you or your property. Make sure you hide these records where they can't find them. Start saving money. Squirrel away as much as you can and hide it. If you decide to open a separate bank account, this might mean that you need to consider renting a post office box for your mail or temporarily having it sent to a close friend's house. Change your passwords and your PIN codes and make sure that your computer doesn't have any spyware on it. Have a safe house picked out and have a spare key handy. If you can, prepare an emergency bag with necessities that you might need if you have to make a run for it. In the section below this video, I'm leaving a list of items to give you an idea of what you're going to need to bring with you. So pack this bag and leave it at your safe house. That being said, make sure your car is gassed up and ready to go at all times in case you have to make a sudden escape. Have a spare car key hidden in a location that only you know about. If you made your escape plans using a computer or a telephone that your abuser has access to, be careful to erase the internet history and any phone records that might indicate your plans. If you called for help, dial a different number after you hang up so that your abuser can't use the redial function to trace you. If possible, start secretly gathering your possessions. I started packing those things of mine that I knew my abuser wouldn't miss. I grabbed my stuff from the garage, from way back in the closet, that sort of thing, and I moved it to my safe house. If he borrowed something of mine, I casually asked to have it back, and I faked a valid excuse for doing so. Depending on your situation, you might also want to take the time to gather official documents that you're going to need when you're off on your own. You have to realize that once you've made your intentions clear, your abuser isn't going to cooperate and just hand over your birth control and birth certificates and tax records and whatever else you need. They're not going to make this easy for you. You need to be prepared in case you have to leave everything behind. Depending on your circumstances, you may not get the chance to go back and collect your belongings. So make sure you do this when your abuser isn't home in order to avoid arousing suspicion. If you don't have the luxury of time to prepare your exit, you can also call the police and have them meet you at your home while you pack your belongings so that they're on hand if your abuser shows up and tries to escalate things. If you can, find out your abuser's schedule and plan a safe time to leave when you know that they're not going to be around. When D-Day comes, grab anyone and everyone you can to help you move your crap as quickly as possible. Make sure they're trustworthy. You don't want them to go tipping off your abuser. If you're bringing furniture with you, have the moving vehicle rented and ready to go. My whole family had to come out while he was at work, and they just started throwing things in boxes, trash bags, whatever we could find. It doesn't have to be packed perfectly. You can sort through it later. Just get it and go. It might be a good idea to make sure that any children or pets are out of the way before the moving process begins. And I'm not saying this is always appropriate, but it may be a good idea to take some collateral with you if you know you're going to have to bargain for any of your belongings that you have to leave behind. And please, resist the urge to discuss your decision to leave with your partner. In my own relationship, I had originally intended to sit down with my abuser and discuss what had been happening and why I was leaving. I felt like I owed him that much. But everyone around me, including trained professionals, heavily discouraged this because it only gives him an opportunity to sow doubt into my decision and makes it easier for him to convince me to stay. It also gives the abuser a final chance to graduate from psychological aggression to physical aggression to scare you into staying. My abuser had already shown signs of physical aggression. He would throw things, kick things, slam things when he became upset. When you leave an abusive relationship, the abuser now has nothing to lose, so they ask themselves, what's next? What can I do to get my way that I haven't done already? For me, I believe that logical answer to that question was physical aggression towards myself or our cat. So I packed everything, and I took the cat too, for good measure, because I was genuinely scared for her safety as well as my own. You do not owe your abuser an explanation, and trying to reason with someone who cannot empathize with you can lead them to become violent. Instead, what I did was send my abuser an email long after I'd left, detailing the particulars of his abuse and of my decision to leave. An abuser can't interrupt a letter's thoughts. They can't sit there and argue with a letter. They can't beat a letter into submission, but they can do that to you if you give them the chance. Alternatively, if you're the one kicking the abuser out of the house, make sure you have documentation of the abuse to show law enforcement. Get a restraining order, be sure to change your locks, and it might be smart to invest in extra security around your home, such as an alarm system and motion-detected outdoor lighting. Once you're out, block all contact with your abuser. Allowing them to contact you only makes it easier for them to persuade you to return. In the more extreme cases, this may require you to change your phone number, your email, your address, or even your place of employment. If your employer knows what is going on and you provide a picture and a description of your abuser in case they show up asking for you, then you can have them escorted off property. Do the same for your child's school or daycare. Provide them with a copy of any official documentation, such as a restraining order. Be careful who you give your new number and address out to. If your partner is prone to stalking, consider changing your daily routine or rescheduling any appointments that your abuser knows about. Take different routes to work, shop at different stores, go to a later church service, that sort of thing. The idea is to be less predictable. One of the best things you can do is lay a false trail. Have your friends and family in on it, and if your abuser tries to contact them, they can kind of lead him astray. And lastly, be prepared, because your abuser is likely to start dragging your name through the mud. They will tell anyone and everyone how horrible you are, how you abuse them, and anything else they can think of to turn the tide of public opinion against you. I definitely noticed that certain mutual friends had unfriended me on Facebook, and I have no doubt why. But don't let this bait you into contacting your abuser, and be wary of trying to win back those people who are under your abuser's spell, because it's just a last resort to get you re-involved in the relationship. So if you want more information on how to safely leave an abusive relationship, I've provided the sources for this video in the section below, as well as the number for the National Domestic Abuse Hotline. I hope this helps, and everyone have a good night.